So now we're going to talk about establishing rapport to maximize learning. Motivating students to reach their goals depends on how well you establish and maintain rapport with your student. If your student trusts that you have the necessary knowledge, skills, and are generally interested in their successful growth, they will be motivated to perform at their best. You develop their trust by communicating clearly about your goals for the student overall, your plan for each session to help them work towards these goals, and your expectations for the student's performance. Equally important in ensuring ongoing student motivation is making lessons meaningful to the student through specific feedback and connections to his or her interests. Below are specific guidelines on how to maximize learning through a strong rapport with your students. So, define instructor-student roles. So, a safe place to ask questions. So, just make sure that your student knows that, it's a very safe place to ask questions, that they could ask any question that they would like. In grad school, I had a professor who said there's no such thing as a dumb question. And so, you don't have to say those exact words, but, convey kind of, that message to your student so that they feel safe when they come to work with you. Make sure your student knows why he or she is here and is on board with your goals for learning. So depending on the age of the student, of course, make sure that you convey that, you're here to work on reading, or you're here to work on writing, or we're here to, prep you for private school and, get you ready for the ISE test. And then make sure you get rid of that negative attitude that is attached to tutoring. So this is not just about tutoring. It's about getting you ready for your future and your next couple years. So learning the strategies, learning how to be independent, learning how to, get to where you can be independent. So with my students at the school I work at, I always start all my afternoon sessions with, let's look at your planner. What do you feel like is the most important thing for us to work on today? Just for the academic coaching. So they get in the habit of knowing what they need help on and what they don't need help on and what is most important for them to get done. And then just convey to them that everyone has different strengths and weaknesses, and you can totally bring in your own personal stories for that if you would like. And then everyone needs help at different times. So we relate to an example of when you, the instructor, struggled with something and benefited from the help from someone. So, and it can be when you were in elementary school, middle school, high school, or even in college. It doesn't matter. Just as long as you relate that information to them. Because then they'll be oh wait, I'm not the only one that's needed help in my life.
So, I guess what I've been trying to do lately, during my first sessions, I just sort of have an introduction with them on what works for them.
Good.
So if they prefer to take a break or not, or just to let me know when they do need a break and their interpretation of why they're there.
Perfect.
And there was one other thing that I've been doing. Oh, and then I also remind them, I like to do this when I'm studying because it helps me. Maybe it'll help you. Or you can find something that might help you.
That is, I love that. And that's actually perfect because that allows them to feel welcome and to feel this instructor, whoever it is, if it's area, that you feel comfortable having them ask you questions and that they can, the student can ask you questions and that you are truly there for them. That's why all of our sessions are one-on-one. That's why we don't do any group sessions because, number one, we want that relationship with that student and we want them to feel comfortable that it's okay that they, learn differently and that it's okay that they can come to our center or whatever location we're at and get that help. So that is awesome. I love that you do that. And I always start off with every session let's not talk about schoolwork right now. Let's talk about your day, let's talk about what was good in your day or what's going on, whether if it's be socially or academically. If it's a Monday or Tuesday session, what do you do this weekend? Make it bring it into their daily life, kind of get to know them at a personal level and not just an academic level, which is also really important. So, moving on, the next thing we want to do is clarify behavior expectations. So the following are further tips on motivating and engaging your student focus. So in your initial meeting with your student, be sure to explain the Learning Center expectations and rewards. This way you can clearly establish ground rules and make it clear what you expect from the student in your sessions. So that would be the La Jolla Learning Works kind of like 4 rules that we have. I always go through them whenever I have a new student, just so that we're all clear and that we keep the space very clean and organized and we don't ruin the materials that we use for all of our students. And then at the beginning of each session, present your student with a visual schedule for the session. So this gives the student security in knowing what is expected for him or her for the session, which alleviates anxiety. So depending on the student, sometimes I have it already ready. I'll have this on the whiteboard, I'll have a schedule already ready for them. And then sometimes they like to do it. So I'll be like, we're going to do this, this, and this, and they'll like to write it down so they are in control of their schedule. So either or, I've done both ways. Both ways works. Reward students at the end of the session with 5 stickers, 1 column for their sticker charts. When the student completes his or her sticker chart, he or she may choose a prize from the treasure box. So we have a treasure box here. I don't quite have one in Carmel Valley or Mission Valley yet. I need to talk to Megan about getting that, actually. But don't be afraid to give your students rewards. Make sure if you do a sticker chart for the younger kids, or any student that you feel needs a sticker chart, you can give stickers throughout the session. So if they did a really good job on this activity, give them a sticker. And then once they fill out the entire sticker chart, you can give them a prize. You can give them whatever arrangement you like to think that you talk about your students. So if a student really likes video games, then you can convey that to mom and dad that they did really well and they filled out their sticker chart, but they get extra time on their video games at home. So just have that open communication with the parents and their students if you want to choose a outside of session kind of activity at home.
Okay.
If your student appears to be losing focus and attention, change environments or switch from sitting to standing, or going from the ball to the chair, or maybe just taking a minute break, a stretch break, maybe changing in Carmel Valley we can change from the desk to the standing over by the other desk to the whiteboard, whatever they need to do for changing environment. And then if you have a problem keeping your student focused, talk to our assistant director. Adapting to older students, find out what motivates them to succeed. Listen closely to identify what might be underlying lack of motivation. Fear of failure, overindulgence, rebellion against parent pressure, etc. Be sure you are providing enough support to allow them to be successful. Success will fuel motivation. So older students, this might be really tricky. So again, just make sure you communicate with them and that you see what they like to do. So if it's video games, or it's extra time with friends, or a movie, or I don't know, whatever they like to do, make sure that you convey that to them so that reward will go home and that it will follow through, so they can be motivated during your sessions.
Okay.
Any questions on just setting up for your session, clarifying behavior, expectation, the rewards?
No.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to move on to structuring effective sessions.
Okay.
So, taking advantage of your administrative time at the end of each session and your prep time will ensure that you deliver clear lessons. Follow the instructions below to ensure your students get the most out of their time with you. Okay, so session prep time. Prior to your session start time, you have materials box, working folders, student binders, and other program materials or games ready at your station. If you take good notes in your working folders and use your admin time to prepare materials in advance, session prep should only take a few minutes before each lesson. Review your notes, make sure you have the copies you need, and outline your plan. If you need additional time to prepare lessons or review materials for a student, please email the assistant director to get approval for admin time. This may be used for preparing student materials, responding to client emails from session reports, checking your messages in the database, and organizing your student materials. Now, it can be difficult, especially when you have back-to-back sessions. It can be very difficult to get all your session reports done, all your prep time, get organized for the next session in 10 minutes. So, that was weird. Okay. So, if you need, especially because you're newer, if you need additional admin time, don't be afraid to ask us. I still get, sometimes depending on the week, I'll get like a half an hour or so of additional admin time, and I've been here for like almost 2 years. So if you don't be afraid to ask for that, because we do want to respect your time, and we don't want you doing overwork and not getting paid for it. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. The session format. So each session normally is 50 minutes unless we do an hour and a half to 2 hour sessions. So this is how we kind of set it up. So the first 2 to 5 minutes, we gauge their attention. So we talk about their day, see what's going on in their lives. So have the student fill out a daily check-in sheet to get the right state of mind. Play a 5-minute warm-up game. So all those games that we have at all the offices, you can either do it at the beginning of the session if you feel like a student needs kind of a minute or two to just kind of get in the right mind, or you can do it as kind of a reward at the end of the session if you feel like they've done hard work. So either or, I've done both. I've had them play at the beginning if I feel like they come in and they're just so wound up that they need to calm down and get in the right mindset. Or I'll do it, most of the time I'll do it at the end of the session, the last 5 minutes. Then after I get them kind of comfortable and kind of set down, I review what we did last session and kind of go over concepts that were tricky for them. So that's when I would go refer back to my comments section in my working folder. Then I would introduce new material and go through our activities about what we're going to be doing for that session. Next. The next one is guided practice. So allow the student to practice with your assistance in monitoring errors. And then the next one is independent practice. So have the students' mistakes become learning opportunities. So use skillful error handling to guide the student to self-correct. And the assessment is to ask questions to provide quick practice problems as an informal evaluation of student mastery of objectives. So obviously, depending on the program that you're teaching with the student, this is going to vary from program to program. But as we get into you can ask me questions later about, each program and specifically, we can kind of go through and see how your sessions will lay out, because it's going to change. How your sessions change will depend on how long the session is. If it's longer than 50 minutes, that's going to change it a little bit. And then it's also going to change it a little bit depending on the program that you're working with them on. And then the wrap-up is we're going to use the last 5 minutes of your session to clarify homework and next steps to the student to prepare for your next meeting. Provide closure for the session by filling in a daily check-in sheet with the student's learning reflection. So that would be what was a win for today's session? What did you learn? What were you excited about? So they go home or wherever they're going to next on a positive note. Visual schedules. It is amazing the power of writing schedule to ease your students' anxiety and build trust in you as a teacher. So just as we teach that instruction paragraphs in writing help a reader engage with the author and know what to expect ahead, presented outline for your sessions will ensure it engages students through your lessons. So before you start your sessions, outline the session plan on a mini whiteboard. So like we said before, write it all out. And sometimes, like my student yesterday, I had them write the time. So we're going to do IXL for 10 minutes. So they know, okay, and then we set the timer. So they know exactly how long they're going to be doing for each of their activities. Okay, especially when you give them homework, do not accept, I do not have any homework. Check assignments online. Make sure that for ISE that they do their homework. If they don't come prepared and if they don't do their homework, don't be afraid to do, for preparation, to add medium on their session report if it's half done, to do low if nothing's done. because especially with our test prep, they're taking all these tests, especially ISE, they're taking these tests to go to get ready for private school. And for private school, you need to be on top of it, and you need to make sure that you get your homework done. So we're prepping them for their next couple years at middle school and high school at that environment. If you're doing academic coaching and they come in and they're like, I don't have homework, then all these students at these schools have their online database through their school that all the teachers will put their homework assignments on, and that will put upcoming tests when the upcoming test will be. So you will go directly to that and say, okay, we're going to check online and see what upcoming assignments or tests they might have. Break your session into 4 to 5 different activities to allow varied opportunities for practice. This is especially important for your younger and more active students. Think of ways to incorporate various learning interests, games, or movement for those who are kinesthetic learners, videos or online games for those who like technology, etc., or if they like, drawing or whatever. For larger assignments like essay writing, think about chunking the project into steps. So brainstorm with inspiration maps or brainstorm with the whiteboard. Check in with Foursquare. So you're going to outline next. After you brainstorm, you're going to outline with your Foursquare, draft your introduction. This way you can model for a student how to take a large project and make it more manageable. And you can even write that down on like another whiteboard. You could say, okay, we're going to brainstorm, and then our next step is we're going to do our Foursquare outline, and then we're going to write our introduction, and then we're going to draft it, and then so use the writing, for instance, use that writing checklist as a way to break it into different steps. Schedule a brain break or reward game at the end of each session for students who cannot sustain their focus and retain concepts without taking a break midway through or tired towards the end of the session. So our ADHD or younger students. For students that come in for an 1.5-hour sessions to 2-hour sessions, they might not want to take a break, but because the way the brain works, we need to have them take like even just a 5-minute break where they just tell us a story, you talk about their life, or whatever, play a quick game, because that will make them refocus and be ready for the second part of their session. Okay, admin time. The last 10 minutes of each session are designed as record keeping and prep time for each student. This is communicated to parents so they know to pick up their child up to allow your time to update the student's materials and write a session report. Be mindful of the clock to complete your sessions on time. Working file notes. So before we move on to working file notes, this can be kind of tricky to keep it at 50 minutes, but make sure that when you plan to keep it at 50 minutes, because that's your time that we want to be respectful of. So that's your 10 minutes in between sessions to write your session report, to take your break, or to prepare for the next student. If you need to take like a few minute break to regroup, that's your time. You are getting paid for that time, so we just want to make sure that we respect that time and that you're not working with the student. So just be mindful of that, and it's just something that you'll get used to. Working file notes. So finish any notes that need to be completed for your session. So you can do that also in the 10 minutes. Okay. Session reports. For session reports, you should spend no more than 2 minutes to document your session in a session report. You'll receive a 2-minute hourglass to help you keep track of your time for your session reports. Your session report should analyze the student's performance during that session and connect to the objectives set out in their learning plan. So the report will be sent home to parents and copied to teachers. Be professional and clear in your expression. So these are some points that we need to have in our session reports. And obviously you're not going to have all these points in your session reports for every session, but they should be like, could be some examples that you can kind of use to guide you in your writing. So number 1 is to address the areas that show need for improvements, both academic and metacognitive. Give praise, address strengths and areas of growth. Give parents honest feedback. Do not overly positive if there is a problem or challenge. Give them feedback is essential to keep the parent in the loop and give them realistic expectations for the student's progress. And then every single detail is not necessary, so provide enough information to communicate what you worked on, how the student did, and any areas for your further instruction that were observed. And then if you need to, include a private admin note if there's a concern that arises during your session that needs to be addressed by, or something that you need to be guided on. So that will go directly to Saparna, whoever, or Megan, or whoever the assistant director is, so that we can get back to you with your questions. If you're at the other office, then use that admin note too if you need any materials that we can send over to you in email, so you can get those ready for your sessions over there and you don't have to come to this office. And then if there is like immediate concern, then give them directly give the La Jolla office a phone call or email to either the La Jolla office or the parent, depending on what like the situation is. Prep materials. Make copies and gather any additional materials needed. Put away student binders and folders and any other resources you have taken out for your session. And then billable time. It is important that everyone's time is respected. If a parent wants to discuss his or her student or requests for you to contact a teacher on behalf of the student, make sure you explain that you only have 10 minutes, or explain that any time over 10 minutes will be billed. So that is on the parent. So if the parent wants to talk to you for 20 minutes, then they're going to have to bill us, because that is respecting your time. So just make sure, like, look, if you have any questions, please, like, set another time, a meeting time that we can meet, because I only have 10 minutes. Going back on, before we go on to the next point, going back on session reports, that's going to look different, obviously, per session and per what you're doing. How I do mine is I just write, okay, so this is what we worked on, this is how well they did, and this is what they have to do for homework, if they have any homework, and this is where they're going to be heading in their next session. So the parents have, like, a good, like, outline of what happened. For academic coaching students, I don't know if you're going to have any, you probably will have some students that are academic coaching. Parents might not look at their online schedule at school all the time, so I always, if there's, like, a big project or a big test coming up, I always just say, like, depending on the student, if we're working on, like, they will have a math test coming up next week, make sure that they are ready, obviously depending on the age of the student as well. So we can discuss session reports if you have any other questions later as well. Okay, so our next point is developing metacognition to achieve learning success. If we can help students gain awareness of how they learn and work effectively, they will be able to generalize those strategies to find success in the home setting, school, anywhere else they go. So when students feel confident and capable during sessions and understand what they are doing right, they will be able to demonstrate their capabilities independently. So like I said earlier, the more we teach them the strategies and the more that we have them as a work, or prepare our sessions as we are working together on this, the more independent that they're going to get over time, which is where we're kind of heading them to. We don't want them to be, like, handheld or anything, because that's going to make them, like, be handheld their entire life, which is not what we want them. We want them to teach and be independent. Lost my spot. So your role to help students become more effective learners through development of metacognition or awareness of how to learn and complete tasks. So metacognition relates to thinking about thinking. So you can relate it to self-talk, or when you quietly voice the steps on how to do something to yourself. So our instructors develop independent learners through the use of the Socratic discussion and specific strategies that allow students to break down their learning process into effective steps. So with effective use of the strategies below, you will assist students in overcoming anxiety and frustration and help them blossom into strong, independent learners. So we're going to go over some steps that will help them with this. So the first one is making homework meaningful. So homework becomes academic coaching when you are questioning to prompt student thinking, give feedback, or give specific praise, and teach the student to use effective learning studying strategies. So we want to make homework come meaningful, because if we don't, then they're just going to be like, I don't want to do this. But if we make them, like, understand and know why they're doing it, then it will become more meaningful and they're going to want to do it. So, like, the other day, last week, the students had to do this outline for history, and they didn't want to do the outline. So I had to kind of tell them that this outline is going to help them when they start studying for their test, so they don't have to go back and forth from the book, and that it's all on 1 or 2 pages instead of flipping through the pages. The goal of academic coaching is to teach the students to maximize his or her time and effectiveness in developing deep conceptual knowledge, long-term storage, ready recall of facts, and flexibility in problem solving and higher level thinking. Teach the students effective study skills by modeling interactive use of textbooks, class notes, and handouts, and online resources. Be explicit in explaining how to use the chapter, titles, subtitles, table of contents, and glossaries to understand the scope of material in a textbook or find answers to specific questions. Help the student find resources for additional practice problems to complete between sessions to prepare for tests and quizzes. Create study guides or flashcards together that the students can use to review at home. Relate class content to the student's interest through specific examples. For instance, if a student likes sports, give them an example of how math concepts apply to sports. Or if your student loves fashion, explain economic concepts in terms of fashion industry. If you have trouble coming up with relative lifelong examples, ask your colleagues or the AD or assistant director for help. Help the student plan ahead for projects and tests by backwards planning and chunking study or prep time into smaller units to complete in advance. Have the student record these in a planner or calendar and hold him or her accountable for completing them. Go above and beyond and send the student a text message reminder for important studying before tests and project deadlines. So this you can actually set up on their phone, like a alarm, like you need to be doing this. I don't know why it says text message and why, but so just make sure that you have them help them plan backwards, and make sure that they set alarms on their phone. They know, that they know what they're supposed to be doing each day to get that project completed. Question.